things sit up right. Hold on, let's see. All right, we set. It's your boy Nikki Stees here live, an impromptu Saturday night stream. Tonight, your boy's going to be talking about Joe Namath. This is a name that often gets brought up. You get some Joe Namath defenders that talk about how great he was, about how he changed the game of football. He's a football legend for it. And then you get those that claim he's extremely overrated. And I stand here and say he is very overrated. Matter of fact, the most overrated quarterback to go in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, before everyone, listening to this, whether they catch me live or on the replay, being we're just starting, it's going to be on the replay. Anyone that is a Joe Namath fan hears this and gets mad. Let's talk about it. Let's get a couple things in perspective. Number one, being overrated does not automatically make somebody bad. It does not. Overrated, there are plenty of athletes, plenty of entertainers that were good but considered overrated. Like, I could use several examples. I could say Jimmy Butler's overrated. I've always stood by that when it comes to basketball because and the reason I say that is for all the basketball fans that say, oh, Jimmy's not overrated. He's a star. Now, when it comes to like Jimmy Butler, as far as him being a superstar goes, I've considered him more of an all-star tier player who gets superstar attention. He gets that superstar attention. People talk about him. He's got his fans. But as a player, I don't put Jimmy Butler in the same stratosphere as a Steph Curry, a prime LeBron James throughout a majority of his career. A guy like, say, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what he's becoming. Well, Jimmy Butler led 2 finals runs with the Miami Heat. One of the asterisks to that is that was in a weaker Eastern Conference, number one. And number two, both times they got there, they fell short against the teams out west. First in 2020 in the bubble against the Lakers, then 2023 against the Denver Nuggets, against Nikola Jokic-led Nuggets, who's won 3 regular season MVPs, plus the finals MVP. So I don't consider Jimmy Butler in that tier. So that kind of makes him overrated. Because he's good, he's an all-star, but I don't really consider him a superstar quality player. So that's in one example of overrated. Someone that's good, that's all-star or Pro Bowl, in football's case, level talent, but is overrated. Now, switching gears back to football here for a second, talking about, now with that in mind, so overrated. There are plenty of people that are overrated that are good, but overrated does not automatically mean somebody is bad, as based off the Jimmy Butler example. Now, when it comes to Joe Namath's career, he did help revolutionize. He was a historic figure in the game of football. He played a role in the AFL-NFL merger, leading the Jets to victory in Super Bowl III. He had himself an awesome season and had himself a great performance to help beat the Baltimore Colts in that Super Bowl III. And that's the most important thing. That victory for the Jets helped lead the AFL-NFL merger. So Joe Namath played a huge role in that. So in some ways, his Super Bowl victory is iconic. His signature moment with that Jets team on Super Bowl III is iconic. Joe Namath was a big star. He was very popular, had a larger-than-life personality, which helped, and it helped out that he was in a big market in New York. So Joe Namath had all those going for his favor. Hello? Fofo, what is up? Thanks for stopping by. And so, like I was saying, that does help right there. So Joe Namath had that larger-than-life aura. Matt, to this day, he still does commercials, and we still remember that infamous interview with him and Susie Colbert. We all remember it was the Super Bowl III Jets reunion. Joe Namath was hammered. In the second half, he was being interviewed by Susie Colbert. She asked him a question of what he thought about the, at the time, current Jets team. We're doing good, Fofo. We're having a nice impromptu Saturday discussion about football here. Kicking it with the chat. So thanks for stopping by with the chat. Thanks for asking. Doing great. Kicking a few laughs, sharing some old stories. I remember that Joe Namath was hammered, talking to Sue, And old Susie Colbert asked us, what do you think of the current Jets team? He had nothing to do with answering the question. He confidently and drunkenly told Susie Colbert that she was a pretty girl and he wanted to kiss her on national television. That's an iconic moment in sports interviews that lives on to this day. And unfortunately for Namath, it's his most embarrassing public moment. Even he himself admitted the next day he woke up, he was embarrassed when he realized what he did. He had that, oh shit, what did I just do yesterday moment? And he actually reached out and apologized to Susie Colbert. She accepted the apology. She moved on from it. So fortunately, in the long screen, yeah, it's kind of funny looking back on it because he didn't actually do anything to hurt Susie Colbert. And once he realized he screwed up and apologized, she moved on from it. So it was embarrassing the night of, but no long-term vow. So it's kind of funny looking back on it. So point is, Joe Namath is still a very popular figure, even long after his football career was over. Most notably amongst younger fans my age for that infamous Susie Colbert interview. That's still a sideline interview legendary clip to this day. So he had that. And plus, when he was active, he did pantyhose commercials, which a lot of men looked at sideways, but it also increased his appeal amongst women. And I'm sure Joe Namath had plenty of fun with women in his prime. Hi, Emma, what's up? So trust me, Joe Namath was living that wild lifestyle off the field. But that's what made him popular. And that was part of Joe Namath's appeal. Back during that late 60s, early Super Bowl era, AFL, NFL merger years, Joe Namath played a big role in that era. And he was a big draw. So he's certainly a historic figure in the game of football. But if you're talking about his on-career years, if you're talking his combined career, not just the Super Bowl run, his career was overrated in that regard. So yes, as big a star as he was, as entertaining as he was during that time, even post-football career, yes, as much as people, especially in the New York area, love Namath, he was overrated as a player. And there's no shame in admitting it. There's no shame. Because a lot of times we have those sports figures or entertainers that we're fans of that we get joy out of, but they can be considered overrated at their craft. And for Joe Namath, if you take away that one season, he threw more interceptions than touchdowns. He had a career-losing record. So his overall NFL career was not great. It's redeemed by that Super Bowl moment. And plus, the fact that he would have that larger-than-life personality also saved his career, gave him more opportunities. And one of the reasons why, even during the years he struggled before and after that Super Bowl run, he kept getting opportunities is because of his larger-than-life appeal at the time. Because they knew that Joe Namath would sell tickets to the games. So what he sometimes lacked in on the field, he made up for with his personality. And the Jets knew this. They knew they could sell some tickets to their home games. They knew Namath was a star that would keep the spotlight on them as a team as long as he was on their roster. So they stuck with him. But, hey, they got their payoff for it. They got that one great season out of him despite all the struggles. And that one great season was good enough for a Super Bowl win and their franchise-defining moment. So they all worked out in the end. So I'm not knocking the Jets at all because they stuck with a guy who had his struggles but ultimately won them the Super Bowl. How many quarterbacks can say that? You had quarterbacks with better career statistics like Bernie Kosar for the Browns, but couldn't get a championship win. Archie Manning for the Saints had good career stats, but struggled to win games for them early on. So in that regard, Namath did more than guys like, say, Archie Manning or Bernie Kosar. Now, when it comes to Joe Namath versus, say, Dan Marino, the only thing Namath's got over Marino, with all due respect to Namath, is that Super Bowl win. Marino has all the other accolades. The only thing missing was a Super Bowl win. Same with a guy like a Jim Kelly as well. So in that regard, Joe Namath did that right. And he became famous as well. But I also got to give him credit. He was tough as nails, too. He would take a bunch of hits, get back up, and keep playing. I can't take that away from him. That's a toughness that's missing from a lot of today's athletes. And that was something that made a lot of athletes during that time, in this case, Joe Namath, very popular, was that right there. He would take those hits, get back up, keep swinging. And that's something people respected from him. But with all that being said, despite all that, the dude, the only downside was, outside of all that, he didn't have a great pro career. He was a star at Alabama. Ain't no taking that away from him. But at the pros, he had that one great season, which makes up for all the other inconsistencies and inefficiencies during his pro career. The win-loss record for his total career. The TD interception ratio for his own career. I mean, man, Joe Namath is a one-of-a-kind quarterback. He's the only quarterback with a losing pro record. Yep, that's right. Hey, Mitch, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for stopping by. You caught notice of this live stream, Mitch. We got Carl Bishop in the chat. But, man, Joe Namath's the only guy I can think of that could have a losing career record, throw more INTs than touchdowns, but still be a big star during his era. For that right there, he's truly one of a kind, because name me another quarterback that can do that. It hasn't been done since. You have not found a quarterback with those numbers that was a big star. I don't think it's ever going to happen again, especially not in today's game. Especially today's game where it's all about stat padding and teams are impatient with quarterbacks, which I'll get more to that in a minute. But yeah, Joe Namath, as much as people love him, the dude's overrated, and he's the worst quarterback inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's just the reality of it. When you look at his overall resume compared to Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Warren Moon, and all the other guys that are in the pro football, and Kurt Warner, Brett Favre, Troy Aikman, he's not as good a quarterback as those guys. So despite all the wonderful things, the dude's overrated. Just look at his career numbers. That's just the reality of it. So while we're still on the subject of quarterbacks, now we're going to switch gears. I'm going to give you my thoughts on some of the current quarterbacks. And since we're talking about the New York Jets, let me start with Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields, look, now do I think the dude's a scrub? I don't think the dude's a complete scrub, but he's not the franchise guy to me. I just don't see it in him. During his time with the Bears, he had a lot of highlight reel plays. Justin Fields was fun to watch with the Chicago Bears, particularly that 2022 season. His highlights were fun, but if you look at that season, the Bears didn't really amount to any winning with Justin Fields as their quarterback now, did he? Nah. Now, that's part the Bears for not having a good team, but at the same time, when you look at it, look at Justin Fields' highlights from that season. It was mostly runs. You didn't see a whole lot of big passes from Justin Fields. You didn't really see a lot of elite throws. You didn't see a lot of Hail Marys or deep throws that convince you, hey, this guy can be a star quarterback. And some people will say, well, that's because he's more of a running quarterback. But let's look in today's NFL. How many of these star quarterbacks are running quarterbacks? My team, the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, and Jalen Hurts. Anyone that follows him, we know he can throw the ball too. You saw 2 Super Bowls. He had 2 of the best performances of his careers in both Super Bowls. Super Bowl 57 when we fell short, and then 2 years later when we got our revenge and he won the Super Bowl MVP. Those were 2 of his best games from just a performance standpoint. And we've seen Jalen Hurts. He can throw the ball downfield. He can throw those 40, 50-yard ball downfield. Yes, it helps that you have AJ and Smitty, but you still got to have the arm strength to get it done. You still got to have the arm strength to throw the ball to your receiver, not to overthrow him. And Jalen Hurts does have that. Another one, Lamar Jackson. Remember when early on it looked like he was going to be more of a running back that was going to have a lot of highlight reel plays but kind of fizzle out? Not so fast. Lamar Jackson can throw the ball too. He's had numerous 30-plus touchdown seasons. Some even argue last season when Josh Allen won the regular season MVP, it should have been Lamar's third. The point being is Lamar Jackson can throw and run. Josh Allen, too. He can make plays with his feet, but he can throw. I haven't seen that from Justin Fields. I haven't really seen his ability to make those impressive throws that Jalen Hurts, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, or even if you want to say Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes can be a running quarterback too. And he's also a great passer. We know this. But I haven't seen Justin Fields as a thrower and a passer compared to any of those four guys I just named. So I just think Justin Fields, he's more of an exciting highlight reel player than he is an elite quarterback. And plus, he hasn't played a full season his NFL career for one reason or another. His rookie year, he got injured, missed some time. 2022, when he had a lot of highlight reel moments, he didn't play the full season, and he didn't really win a lot of games. Now, that is part him not having a good team around him, but it's also in part because Justin Fields never really took that step as a passer. 2023, the team was a little bit better with a softer schedule, but Justin Fields didn't really show anything. He didn't prove to be elite to me. And last year with the Steelers, they benched him for Russell Wilson. Part of the reason why is because they were more confident in Russell to lead the team. Now, some people will argue, well, they could have had that same success anyway. It's just Tomlin felt more comfortable with Russ because of his past resume. And that is true to an extent. But it's also because they didn't really think Justin Fields was the guy that could lead them long term. They felt like they won a couple games in spite of Justin Fields, not because of him. They looked at Fields' skill set versus Wilson's skill set at that point in time when Wilson was healthy and thought, hey, Wilson gives us a better chance of winning and doing something big. And up until December, it looked like that was the case. And then in December, it's starting with us beating them. Everything started falling apart for the Steelers. They started to collapse and lose a bunch of games. But point is, Justin Fields didn't get the starting job over Russ when they were both healthy because he didn't prove anything as a passer. Even in those games they won, Justin Fields looked more like a game manager. He hasn't done anything to prove himself to be a top-tier passer and quarterback. Now, this year with the Jets, considering how abysmal they are, I don't see Justin Fields really leading the way. And secondly, we haven't seen him make it through a full season healthy yet. So I don't even know if Justin Fields is going to make it the full season, especially being that he makes more key plays running than he does passing. That's one of the reasons he's more injury-riddled. And granted, that's part of the territory that comes with today's NFL, having more mobile quarterbacks. The downside to it is a higher risk of injuries. And we've seen that play out with quarterbacks like Lamar and even our quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Fortunately, Hurts has never suffered a major injury, but he has had a few minor injuries that's caused him to miss some games from time to time. So that is part of the con that comes along with it. Even Cam Newton, it did cause his shoulder to give way, and it cut his prime short by a few years. So that is part of the downside that comes along with having more mobile quarterbacks. And for Justin Fields, who relies way too heavily on his feet, even for today's era, he's more he's at higher risk of injury because he relies way too heavily on his feet. Now, I get it. We all know that's today's NFL, but Justin Fields just hasn't proven himself as a passer to me. I asked you guys watching, name me one great passing play Justin Fields has made at the NFL level. Name me one. I don't really see it. I can't think of one. If you guys can think of something, please let me know in the chat. And I believe even with Chicago Bears, even with Caleb Williams, his struggles his rookie year, he has the chance to progress and get better. Because he's got a new offensive coordinator, a new head coach. Now, when we saw in the Buffalo preseason game, it looks like they got their chemistry up. Now, that's only a preseason game, but from what I saw, Caleb Williams shows that he can be an efficient passer. He has potential to make plays. And I believe Caleb Williams is one of those quarterbacks that if you're patient with him, if you kind of You don't get too impatient. You don't get, oh, we need something now with the guy, like we see a lot today's NFL. And as long as he stays healthy, he could get better as time goes along and has the potential maybe in a few years from now to maybe be a star quarterback and help turn the Chicago Bears around. I do think there is that potential with Caleb Williams. We saw his rookie season, even though it wasn't great. Well, to be fair, we saw some moments where Caleb Williams flashed some potential. And to me, Caleb flashed more potential as a passer than Justin Fields. Obviously, he and the Chicago Bears still have work to do. And we don't know for sure if he's going to pan out. But I believe there's more potential and more upside with Caleb Williams as a quarterback than Justin Fields from what I saw. Just when you compare the two. Now, we'll see with Caleb Williams if it actually works out or not. Time will only tell. But I do believe there is some potential at least. He could turn around maybe. And maybe be a lower tier franchise quarterback a few years from now. Which, by Chicago Bears standards, if that does pan out, would be a significant upgrade at the quarterback position. Because the Bears have not had that guy. Not in my lifetime. I'm 30. I have not seen the Chicago Bears ever have an elite quarterback. Any playoff run they've had, that Super Bowl run, Super Bowl 41, the conference championship game 2010, all that came in spite of their quarterback. The 2018 Bears, where they went 12-4 and won the NFC North. Khalil Mack was the lead guy on defense right when they made that trade before the season with the Raiders. That was all in spite of their quarterbacks. 05-06, that was in spite of Kyle Orton and Rex Grossman. Now, Kyle Orton would go on to become a respectable quarterback, but we never saw Kyle Orton as a top guy. Rex Grossman, he fizzled out, became Jay Cutler's backup. That's saying something when you get replaced by Jay Cutler, who was a drastic underachiever through his entire football career, even at Vanderbilt. Which makes me wonder why the Denver Broncos saw something in him in the first place. And I get at the time, they were fresh off a conference championship game, in spite of Jake Plummer, I believe. But Jay Cutler was just the same. It's kind of the same issue. He was even worse than Jake Plummer. Same issue of coming to a talented team where the team was going to be solid, but their quarterback was going to hold them back. But that was the guy who also replaced Rex Grossman in Chicago. The point being is Chicago Bears have had a poor history with quarterbacks. They made a conference championship game in 2010 in spite of Cutler. And what happened when they had to play a team led by a superstar quarterback? In that case, the Green Bay Packers, they got demolished. The Green Bay Packers beat them with prime Aaron Rodgers and then went on to win Super Bowl 45, referring to the Packers. Well, the Bears regressed immediately the next season with Cutler. So the point being is any team success Chicago Bears have had in my lifetime at 30 years of age has been in spite of their quarterbacks and has only been some glimpses far and few between is what I'm looking to say. But now the Chicago Bears are at a point with Caleb Williams where for their sake, they're hoping that something happens. Caleb Williams could at least, even if he's that lower tier franchise quarterback, if he could at least be, even say the level of a Trent Green, that would be a significant upgrade at the quarterback position for the Bears. That's how bad their quarterback history has been. Caleb Williams' skill set kind of being like a Trent Greenish with being like, even if he's like the Trent Green of his skill set, that's a significant upgrade for the Chicago Bears. That's how bad their quarterback history has been. I mean, Lord, even a peak Dante Culpepper before the injuries would be an upgrade. If he could even compare to like Trent Green or Dante Culpepper tier, that would be an upgrade for the Bears. And Caleb Williams at least has some potential. But we still got to wait and see if the dude can get it done. To me, he hasn't proven anything yet. We're going to have to see what he does this sophomore season. Does he improve? And does he take that next step? I mean, even if the Bears win 7 or 8 games, but Caleb Williams improves statistically, that's an upgrade for the Chicago Bears. That's an upgrade. It's at least a let's give him a chance year 3 scenario. Bryce Young, now, speaking of year 3, give him a chance scenario. Another quarterback who is in that position is Bryce Young. Me, I'm not really that sold on Bryce Young. I get they draft the receiver in the first round. What's his name? Who did the Panthers draft? If you guys in the chat remember, who did the Panthers draft that receiver to try to bring in some help for Bryce Young? Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they brought in a receiver, try to give him some help. I mean, hey, maybe it works out. Maybe the receiver pans out, Bryce Young gets a weapon, but I'm not sold that the Carolina Panthers are going to take that next step. I'm not sold that Bryce Young is all of a sudden going to be the guy that can lead them to a division title. I mean, it could happen. I mean, stranger things have happened. We've seen quarterbacks unexpectedly bring a team up. We saw Jalen Daniels with his rookie year with the Commanders. Even with his potential, he greatly exceeded expectations for his rookie season, leading the Commanders to a conference championship game. So, and you never know, stranger things happen. Even though I don't think Bryce Young's going to do it, it could happen. But I'm not sold on it because the Carolina Panthers, especially with David Tepper as the owner, if you look up that guy's track record, matter of fact, take Urinating Tree, the YouTuber. He did a whole video on David Tepper exposing what a garbage owner he is for the Panthers. I don't trust that organization. I feel like he's, outside of Jimmy Haslam of the Browns, he's the worst owner in an NFL team. Even putting my fan bias aside, David Tepper for the Panthers is worse than Jerry Jones with the Cowboys. Because at least Jerry Jones can get a team together that at least he knows how to get a talented team together. Even throughout the 21st century, we make fun of the Cowboys not getting past the second round, but at least with Jerry Jones, they put together a lot of good and talented teams that have made playoff runs. Tony Romo, now Dak Prescott, while overrated and can't get anything done in the playoffs, they're at least talented enough to get teams to the playoffs. And that's something that I respect, that at least I got to give credit where credit's due. Something that I don't think David Tepper can do. And people say, well, the Panthers reached 2 Super Bowls unlike the Cowboys since the turn of the millennium. But those 2 Super Bowls they reached came with the previous owner, Jerry Richardson, not David Tepper. Since David Tepper took over, the Panthers have been doo-doo as a team. Point being is I don't trust a team micromanaged with that type of coach, with that type of owner, hiring coaches. Bryce Young, and even last year while he statistically improved, getting back to him, I didn't see anything from Bryce Young that made me think he could be that next dude. It was better than his rookie season, but he didn't have a great season. He didn't stand out. The reason Bryce Young's second season stood out really is because Anthony Richardson from the Colts played like dog shit, threw more interceptions than touchdowns. And then when I compared Bryce Young to Anthony Richardson, I said, okay, Bryce Young at least had more TDs than INTs. He statistically improved, unlike Richardson. That whole talk about Bryce Young improving year 2 more so was a comparison between him and Anthony Richardson, his fellow 2023 draft class mate. But if you put aside that comparison, you look at Bryce Young, I just didn't see anything great from him. Like I said, I feel like he's earned the opportunity for year 3 because he statistically improved, but I don't think he's going to be that dude for the Panthers. I just don't see it. I don't. Now, for the Colts, that's Anthony Richardson. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson. I'm really disappointed in the dude. I'm more disappointed in him than Bryce Young because Richardson to me had more potential, and he has not maximized that potential. He has not. And he can't stay in football shape. Remember last year, he took himself out for one play for the reason of being too tired. If you an NFL quarterback and that's your reason for coming out of a game is you too tired, you don't belong in the NFL. You don't. Once I saw that, I'm like, oh, Anthony Richardson, bro. I just, as a football fan, was disappointed because I thought this dude had potential going into the pros, coming out of Florida, and he just, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, man, this dude's stamina is a huge red flag. He was already dealing with injury concerns. Now his stamina is a concern. If you pull yourself out of a game for being too tired, I don't see how you can be trusted. What's going to happen in the fourth quarter when your team's in a tied game and you got to run the 2-minute drill with no timeouts and Anthony Richardson's stamina is a concern? That right there let me know, oh man, I don't think he's to be trusted, man. Easily, it's a shame because the dude had some potential, but he just can't get himself in football shape. He obviously doesn't take care of his body well enough to stay on the field, especially looking at it now. Once he said that, I had to pull myself out of the game to catch my breath. I knew the main reason he struggles to stay healthy is because he doesn't keep himself in football shape. Now, you can't always blame football shape for injuries. Injuries are part of the game. It's a physical sport. Injuries can happen to any player at any time. So, I'm not blaming injuries in and of itself on football shape. No, that has nothing to do with it. But when it's a player who's constantly in and out of the lineup, who took themselves out of the game because they're too tired, that tells you that in that particular case, it's because they're not taking care of themselves. That's especially the fact he's not taking care of himself and it's happening often. You put the two together, it's pretty obvious why he's constantly getting injured in Anthony Richardson's case. And now the Colts realize with Daniel Jones, well, he hasn't really done much. They don't have a whole lot with Daniel Jones. At least with Daniel Jones. Hold on one second. I'm going to fill up my water. I'll keep talking to y'all guys. At least with Daniel Jones, at least he did have a respectable season in 2022 with the Giants. And he's had his flashes of good. Despite the bad, Daniel Jones has occasionally flashed some good. You feel like he's the guy that could have played better in a different situation. I do feel with Indianapolis, you got Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, got a pretty decent defense. Daniel Jones, I think, will fare statistically better. But I don't think he's going to be the guy that's going to lead a team anywhere. Daniel Jones is just a temporary QB to fill that void in the absence of Anthony Richardson and the disappointment that Richardson has produced thus far. I don't see it, son. I just don't. So I think Daniel Jones, he'll be better in this situation, but I think when it matters most, he's going to fold. You'll probably see Daniel Jones have a 2022 Giants-ish type year with the team around him. With, Jonathan Taylor, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr. He's going to have that type of season where he'll play statistically solid, but you might even get 8-9 wins. Maybe even they could win the division from the Texans. Maybe. I mean, sometimes stranger things have happened. You never know. Maybe. But at the same time, I don't think Daniel Jones ain't going to be the long-term answer. Even if they have a solid season this year, you'll be looking back on going, oh, remember that one year the Colts were decent with Daniel Jones? Good for Danny Dimes, but he was clearly not the long-term answer. That's what I feel like you're going to be looking back on them saying. And that's where I see this going. So I believe that's what's going to end up happening with Daniel Jones in, say, a few years from now. I mean, now you're talking, but so far we've been talking about quarterbacks that are either bust, mid, or capable, but not great in the right situation. I mean, while we're still in that tier, to give you a few other examples, who I think's kind of that mid-tier? I think Geno Smith, kind of that mid-tier. Don't be surprised if with Pete Carroll now in charge of the Raiders, they'll probably improve as a team as the season goes along, but I don't think the Raiders are making the playoffs with Pete Carroll. Sure, maybe they'll play better. Maybe statistically, maybe they'll win some more games. They'll improve their win-loss total. Geno Smith will play better, but I've been the previous Raiders quarterbacks. But to me, Geno Smith is middle of the pack. He went from looking like a bust to being a respectable quarterback, but not the guy that's going to lead a team long term. Especially now, I think the luster of that 2022 underdog season's worn off. It's been a few years since. All right, good for you, Geno. You had that nice turnaround season, but what have you done outside of that that was great? You've really just had a couple similar seasons since, which, yeah, 2022 at the time was awesome, considering Geno had done nothing up to that point except travel from club to club. But now, after having a few, respectable statistical seasons, but not any great team success, all right, what's next? I'm kind of at that point with Geno. It's like, hey, you had a nice little turnaround, but you haven't done anything great. I'm not really having high hopes for you. Trevor Lawrence, to me, Trevor Lawrence is Daniel Jones with a higher ceiling, more disappointment. I just feel like Trevor Lawrence, more so Daniel Jones with more aura to him. That's kind of what I see. So I'm kind of sold on him this year. To me, like I said, Danny Dimes with more aura. But let's talk about some quarterbacks that I think could actually maybe do something. I think maybe C.J. Stroud. Now going into year 3, I do think C.J. Stroud could be better than last season. I kind of got a feeling if Stroud stays healthy, avoids major injury, he'll have himself a respectable season, but if he doesn't get back to rookie form, it's going to spell a long-term problem for the Texans. Even if, say, C.J. Stroud has a solid statistical season, tones down the interceptions, throws a few more touchdown passes, but the Texans only win, say, 10 games, that's not going to get my hopes up for the future that, I think C.J. Stroud could get back to form and be a superstar. I do think Stroud will do better, he's got to get to like that Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen type tier, or even a step below them. Hell, even if he can get into the top 10, that could be a turnaround. But I do think C.J. Stroud, maybe not. But you know who I think does have the potential? Michael Penix Jr. for the Falcons. I know we only saw a handful of games last year, but he's a highly talented prospect. He had some good games for the time he played. Even when they lost to Washington late in the season, he kept them in that game, and they put up a good fight losing effort. I feel like Penix Jr. has the highest ceiling. He could even lead the Falcons to the NFC South title over the Bucs, because last season, the Bucs won by default because they had a better record, the division that is, but they got swept by the Falcons. So now you're coming this season off the backs of Atlanta having their number. Now you got Michael Penix Jr. as the starter. There's a good possibility that maybe if he lives up to the hype, he could be good enough to get the Falcons maybe 10, maybe 11 wins. Maybe I'm thinking more so 9 or 10 wins for the Falcons, but that could be good enough to win the NFC South and at least host a home playoff game, which this would be their first playoff appearance since 2017. That'd be a step forward in the right direction with a young quarterback. So I'm starting to think, hot take, Michael Penix Jr. is going to have a breakout year and lead the Falcons to the NFC South. That's my hot take. I can easily see that happening. And as Caleb Williams, I think the Giants, Jackson Dart will take over. I think by the end of the season, Jackson Dart will make the Giants. He'll show flashes. Giants will be more competitive in their games with Dart. They'll probably lose more games than they win, but they'll at least show some promise, and he'll have some hope for the future. I feel like by the end of the season, maybe Giants, if Dart starts sometime late October, early November, maybe they may finish with 5 or 6 wins with Dart as the starter. They'll probably lose more games, but they'll be more competitive, and Jackson Dart will at least give them a spark for the future and give them confidence that they can turn it around into a winning record for 2026. I can easily see Jackson Dart doing that. I can see him turning the Giants around and giving them hope. Even if he doesn't have a great win-loss record this season, I think he can give them hope for the future, make them competitive. So I could see that happening at some point. And I think Caleb Williams, if he gets fully healthy, with a new coordinator, new head coach, they could possibly turn this ship around. Maybe be competitive, maybe get on the cusp of the 7th seed, but probably miss out because they're in a tough division. You got the Vikings with J.J. McCarthy, who, mind you, J.J. McCarthy is going into a system that Sam Darnold did well with last year. But here's the question mark. How does J.J. McCarthy translate after 1 full year away from football? Having to spend his rookie season recovering from an injury, year 2 basically being his rookie season because he didn't play at all last year. Now, you could argue part of the reason they did so well last year is because Darnold at least had some experience. On the flip side, you could say it was the system and say, hey, if they could do well with Darnold, maybe McCarthy could step in. But how does McCarthy respond from that setback of getting injured in practice before stepping on the field for an official game? That's the big question for me. If McCarthy can overcome that, Vikings have a shot. If McCarthy struggles because of that year off, this could be like the 2023 Vikings all over again, where they're fresh off a run to the playoffs and they had high hopes going into the season but underachieved. That could be the case. So I'm thinking either it could be similar to last year or a bit of a downgrade, kind of like the 2023 Vikings. That all depends on what happens with J.J. McCarthy. I'm thinking one of two ways. Either he steps up, excels with the team around him, or he might struggle this season because of that year off. And if that happens, maybe that could create an opening for the Chicago Bears, maybe to get the number 3 seed, or even an opening for the Packers to get maybe a seed higher than the 7th seed. Kind of interesting. I think the big X factor for the NFC North is going to be how J.J. McCarthy does with that team. That's going to be the big X factor. Is McCarthy good enough to make it work with the team around him? Or does he struggle and the Vikings take a step back? That's the big X factor, particularly for the Bears and the Packers on how their seasons pan out. So just think about, I think that J.J. McCarthy is going to be his performance and the Vikings record, how they do this season is going to be the big X factor for the rest of the NFC North. Before I wrap this up real quick, let's briefly go through a few X factors for the division. I think the NFC East X factor is going to be Washington. How does Washington do? If they take a step back, Daniels hits the sophomore slump that Stroud did, that could maybe open the door for the Cowboys, maybe to sneak in as the 7th seed. We'll see. But I feel like Washington's success is going to be the X factor. Or if Washington steps up, Jaden Daniels has a great season, maybe Washington wins that division. The Eagles are the team having to come in as the 5 or 6 seed. So I feel like that's the X factor there. NFC West X factor is going to be how the 49ers bounce back. Do they stay healthy? Does Brock Purdy come back to form? Can that team stay healthy? If so, 49ers retake the NFC West. They hope get back. They host a home playoff game. Rams are either sneaking in as a wild card or just on the outside looking in. The NFC South's X Factor, like I said, I think Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons, that's the X Factor there. For the AFC X Factor, for the AFC North, that's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. How do they do? That can be the big X Factor. How's their team success? Does Will Howard eventually take over? Does he finally give them that spark they need at quarterback? If he can give them an unexpected spark, that could actually put the Steelers back in contention. Maybe not necessarily in 2025, but at some point in the future, once you go from Rodgers to Howard, if Howard could eventually find that spark, that could be an X factor down the line. But I think the Steelers, particularly how they do late in the season, will be the X factor for that division. X factor for the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins. Can they get off to a hot start? Can Tua bounce back, stay healthy? If so, maybe the Dolphins got a shot at a playoff berth. I still think Buffalo's winning the division. That could be the X factor right there. For the AFC West, the X factor is the Chargers. How do they hold up with the offensive line woes? Can Justin Herbert hold up for the season? Do they rely more on the run to try to help out? How does Harbaugh adjust without that offensive line? How did that team adjust? That's going to be the big X factor right there, is the Chargers. And that's going to affect how the Raiders do, how the Broncos do year 2 with Bo Nix, affect playoff seeding, all that. And the AFC South, the X factor is going to be Houston. CJ Stroud's third season. His performance is going to have a significant effect on whether the Texans have a cakewalk with the division, whether they're competitive with Indianapolis all the way to late in the season. That's going to kind of be the X factor there, because CJ Stroud's going to have a significant effect on that division. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys right here. I hope you guys enjoyed this chat. I had fun coming on here talking about Joe Namath, how he's the only quarterback that could throw more interceptions than touchdowns and still be a big star. Probably the only quarterback in NFL history that will do such a thing. And probably the only quarterback in NFL history with such that'll win a Super Bowl MVP. And also did have fun talking about some of my predictions, what I think could happen. And this is also good because this gives me some content for the 3-point blitz for all my loyal followers on the Hardcore Sports Network when I'm streaming this episode 23 Tuesday 11:30 a.m. on the network. For those that didn't catch this, I can reiterate some points, maybe come up with some new points that I thought about during the time in between after the stream. So I got that coming up. I'm thinking I'm going to schedule a stream for Monday to talk about the Eagles, Jets, give you my thoughts on the roster, who I feel like going to make it, who not. I'll have that coming Monday. I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to put a post when I give you guys an update. I'll give you guys an update then, but thanks for rocking with me tonight. Catch y'all soon. Probably going to be the only time I do this. Usually I don't get the time to do this on Saturday. Today I had an unusual circumstance set me up for this. So with that being said, guys, hope you all enjoyed. Have a great night. Gotta get going. It's your boy Nicky Stees signing off. Peace.